It's 11:45, Nigeria. We either get it right or we fall off the brink. Welcome to 11:45. Every month we speak with remarkable Nigerians about their lives, work, and the lived Nigeria experience. I'm your host, Kadaria Ahmed, and in this edition, I speak with blogger and author Japheth Omojuwa, popularly known as JJ Omojuwa. With a combined online following of over 1 million people, JJ is one of the most influential commentators in Nigeria today. Mr. Japheth Omojuwa, also known as JJ Omojuwa. Which one do you prefer?
JJ Omojuwa is more straightforward.
What's the second J for?
Joshua.
Japheth Joshua Omojuwa.
Exactly, Joshua Japheth Omojuwa.
Your parents were clearly Bible readers.
Yeah, clearly. Also, my dad infused his name with the surname. That's Japheth Omojuwa.
Right. So your dad is Japheth.
So he's Japheth.
Okay.
Okay. Later on, I thought was selfish, so I decided, okay, it's going to be JJ Omojuwa.
I see. Because I thought Japheth maybe was your middle name and Joshua was your first name.
Interestingly, back when I was in King's College, Lagos, I had friends call me at home on the phone, and they'd say they won't speak with Japheth. So it sort of became my name for a long time. Right. For a long time. Till I decided,
did a few of them get your dad on the phone? And
yeah, most of the time, because it was his phone.
Yes.
The phone was always right in front of him, so it was his phone. So he got used to being called, so much so that he went to an event, and so several years later, I went to an event and somebody asked him if he knew Japheth Omojuwa. And he said, "Oh, that's my son." I was like, "Are you sure?" Because he's also Japheth Omojuwa. So I heard he said when he got home that he was going to start answering his name. Which is his other name, which is Adeola.
Because you've claimed this one totally.
Fully.
People get very confused regarding you. What exactly do you do? What is your profession? People talk about you as a social media influencer.
Yeah.
But some of us are of the generation when that wasn't a job.
Yeah.
So we struggle with that. JJ, what do you do?
Yeah, and I remember also Obasanjo reminded me in he actually asked me in 2013 back in Berlin, that blogger, is that a job? So for me, I'm a strategist, I'm a writer, I'm a blogger, and I also help people see things more clearly, whether it's their job or stuff. So I'm a thinker. I also live in a world now.
And you run a proper business structure, where you actually execute these things. Whether you help people think, you help people think it does. So what do you help them think through? Is it purely communication?
It's not purely communication. It's everything. Right. It's really almost everything, because
it's not just social media either.
No, it's not just social media. Social media sort of limits my personality, because there's more to me than that. Except that it's not everything that you want to bring. There are certain things that I think should just remain where they're supposed to be. You don't want to, just because you're a public figure, you don't want to bring your fullness to the internet, because then what's left of your mystery, right? And I think retaining a sense of mystery is very important. Also, we live in a world now where there was a world where when I was born, and maybe in my teenage years, you had to be a teacher, an engineer, a this or a that, but we live in a world now where you can be many things, and I'm proud that
when you started your journey, did you have like a laid out plan, and you thought to yourself, right, I'm going to focus on utilizing blogging and social media and build a career? Or is it one of those things where as you grew in this particular road, you realized, hang on, there's much more I can do here, let me follow it, let me hang on to it? I
always wanted to be a writer. And I love advertising. I still do. And when I just finished serving, one of my friends' dad reached out to me to send my CV, and I was very impressed with my CV already at the time. But I realized that there was just something going on in that space. I sort of did a manifesto of the power of the internet that I went on to live myself, because the things I said that social media would do for people at the time I was writing it in 2010 and 11, it had not done for me. I spoke about how it takes your voice all over the world, and that could mean opportunities beyond even our borders. I also remember during my service here, where I was serving, they created a new department for me, because of me, called Advanced Department, where the strategy was for me to help them push the content to the world. And then, of course, when eventually I stepped out of that space and became after serving, I saw myself that there was a lot I could do.
Is everything you do self-taught? Did you sort of teach yourself the workings of social media and how to utilize it? Or was it a question of you sort of saw the potential, learned a bit on your own, but also went out and officially sort of took formal lessons? And I'm asking these questions for people who are watching you and thinking, one day I want to be like JJ. What's the pathway?
Most of it is self-taught. So for instance, I went to do behavior change. And the reason was because I realized that a lot of my work and a lot of my
thinking... You went to do behavior change where?
At UCL, University College London.
Okay, so you went for what, a full...
For a full year. It was a year program.
Master's program, right?
It was a year program. And I went to do it because I realized I was doing something along those lines. And
you were influencing people.
I was influencing people offline and online, including influencing people directly. There were people that I told, look, don't marry this person, it's a bad idea. And it's turned out very well.
So you're also a marriage counselor.
Not in that sense. Not in that sense.
You broke many people's hearts. That's what I sound like.
I just look at the situation and I'm able to say, look, this, because too many people refuse to see what they see on account of the biases that they've built, maybe because of the relationships they've been with, the kind of things they've heard. And I'm that person that recognizes the place of biases and the power of biases. And this was before I even went to learn about them. So I went then to school to then learn about the things that I was already intuitively really doing and already understanding. So it's a combination of both, but a lot of it is definitely self-taught. I'm very intentional about that.
Now, you talk about the power of biases. We now live in a country that is extremely divided. Our fault lines are deeper than they've ever been. And sometimes you get caught up in some of this conversations that are difficult, that are loud, that are angry on social media. To what extent do you think that our biases as Nigerians has fueled some of our fault lines?
To every extent. The things that you get to hear every day, the things that you get to see every day, they influence you. And that's the first place to debias yourself. If you do not recognize that, then you're already in trouble. You have to recognize that if you go to a church or a mosque, for instance, where they are constantly preaching hate, you're going to be affected. You are going to be affected.
Even if you think you won't be.
Even if you think you won't be. Because that's the way the brain works. The brain just continues to take in and take in and take in. If you tell your brain not to think of something, that's what it thinks of. If I tell you don't think of a white cloth, the thing your brain registers is not a knot. It just sees a white cloth. And one other challenge we've had with Nigeria is that the difficulty in traveling, in moving across the country. So it means that everybody, by the design of our inadequate infrastructure, we're locked in our different spaces. To even travel, it costs a lot of money. I think one of the biggest challenges with Nigeria is as infrastructural as it's about the behavior issue, which is that we don't have the infrastructure for us to move across the country as a collective. I know people move.
This matters why?
It matters because if people do not know themselves, they cannot trust themselves.
Right.
And how do you know yourselves if you're not communicating, if you're not interacting, if you're not doing business? It will be very difficult for Europe to fall into a war because Europe is connected. The borders are open. Everybody's moving. You can work in Paris and live in Madrid, and those designs. You can be in Belgium or be from Belgium and be doing something across the border in the Netherlands. These things are not just physical. They have impact on how we think, on how we see people. That's why I get shocked when people that have been around the world help to forward these things, but their motivation is different from the motivation of the ordinary person.
So what have you found? Where you see people who on the surface are cosmopolitan, well-traveled, educated, and you would think seemingly, open, right, and liberal, and you see them pushing certain things that seem designed to divide. What do you think is going on there?
There's groupthink.
Okay.
There's groupthink. That's one, in the sense that many people are saying this. They forget who they are themselves, and then they get into
like
that
a bandwagon effect, where they sort of just follow the bandwagon.
There is that, especially if they're not like thinkers in that sense. They're not reflective of their actions. Then there's also the political side. It's politically rewarding sometimes to be on that side. So even though this person knows that this is not the right thing to do, but because there's political benefit for that, then they just go along with it. But by design, the individual ordinarily wouldn't be there, haven't been through all the things they have been through.
Now, you've been accused of political bias, right? And I know I've seen on social media I think sometimes I'm also a victim of that, where you've been accused of everything from being the person who installed Buhari, to being El Rufai's lackey, to how do you deal with those things in a way that essentially, first of all, does it bother you that you are seen by some people in that light?
It doesn't, and I explain. I've spent over 10 years in this space, so I've learned. It used to bother me in the early days. Now it doesn't, because now I know people's motivations. I now understand people and why they do what they do, and I think that's very important in how I relate with them. Too many times it's not actually what people do to you or say about you that counts. It is the why behind it. So having understood the why behind why they do what they do, I'm unbothered. So I have biases, and I'll be the first to admit it. I have friends in government that I like, and I'll be the first to admit it. But when you say the things that you say about me, why do you say it? So somebody says that I'm not criticizing Buhari enough. Then the day I criticize Buhari, that person wakes up in the morning and says, why am I criticizing this person? Didn't I impose him on the government? So that's a situation where this person actually would rather I disappear. This person doesn't care.
Moving the goalpost.
They're moving the goalpost. And if you don't understand that, you're going to get into a situation where you think it's about you. It's not about you, it's the person. Because if you wake up in the morning and say, oh, you're not doing this thing, and then I'm doing it not because of you, I'm doing it because I'm a citizen, and then you now come to say, why are you doing it? That's a problem. And then if I did something 7-8 years ago and you said it was wrong, and before you even said it was wrong, I said, no, it's wrong. I shouldn't have spoken like that. And you're saying, why am I not doing that thing again 8 years later? Then that's a problem. That's a problem. So I realize it's not about me, it's who these people are. And
Does this affect your work, your commerciality? Are there people who watch you under attack and who are coming to you as clients and thinking, well, hang on a minute. If you are in trouble with social media, how are you going to help me stay out of trouble with social media? Yeah,
I'm sure it does. But the thing about this thing is that it's not everyone that's your market. Right. It's not everyone. And by and large, I've done it very well in the face of the things I've had to deal with across different administrations. I think I've done it very well, even if I say so myself. I've done it very well. So, and I work from the place of trust. So I never pitch. People come to me. So if you don't know that I can get it done, don't even bother coming, because I'm not even going to tell you that I can get it done. I don't have time for that. So that's it. And the understanding is also that not everybody is my market. I don't intend to go. First of all, the bulk of the market is even segmented. The big crowd I'm not interested in. The exclusive crowd I am interested in. And even in that exclusive crowd, I'm not interested in everyone. And I think that's also the design of most businesses, right?
Right. And so coming back to the issue, though, of politics, like you said, you're not really bothered by some of the things they say, but there's no doubt that, before the elections, at least in 2015, there were certain segments of society that saw President Muhammadu Buhari as a definite better alternative to Jonathan, which is why presumably he won the elections.
Yeah.
Did you actively, I'm trying to understand where this notion that you were pro-Buhari came from. Did you actively work and campaign for that? And if so, do you have any regrets about that now? Or is it one of those things where you simply because you have friends within the ruling party, there's an assumption?
Yeah. First of all, I have friends in the two major political parties.
Did you work for any of them?
Yeah, I did. And it was not, it was open. Okay. First of all, but it started from me being a critic of the previous the administration before Buhari. Right. It had no political connotation. I was just being a citizen, but my voice was strong and it was loud. Right. And this was in the early days of social media. This was unique. Now it's normal, but in those days it was refreshing, it was new, it was unique. So I did that.
And not many people had your reach.
And not many people had my reach that I got from actually doing that. But then what happened was that in doing it, I realized I didn't want this administration anymore. And my choice was strictly based off what political platform had the biggest chance to get his party out. So it was anybody but that administration. And so it was just a default decision, and I supported it, and it was open.
The way it has worked out, or do you not have reservations?
Hindsight is always very, very right, isn't it? And the way life happens is, for me, I pick lessons and move on. I think that many things could have been much better in terms of how, for instance, I think that President Buhari ditched the capacity that elected him and went back to the capacity that he always had with him in the three other elections.
And is it your view that Nigeria has suffered as a result?
I think that goes without saying.
Right.
That goes without saying, because the challenge of being privileged is that you're not able to see what other people are going through. And I can see that because I'm very much out there. As we speak right now, Twitter has been blocked, or whatever you want to call it, banned for 100 days. It affects me directly. And I tell you, when I used to go to places like Addis Ababa and I heard that they had to use VPN, or I would go to China or the UAE, you had to use VPN. It just looked to me like, how can you live in a country where you had to use VPN to access basic things that people took?
It used to make you feel good about Nigeria despite
I didn't even think about Nigeria in that sense. It was just not normal that I was in a country where people... So with Nigeria, it was a remote thing. I didn't even feel it was just remote. It was something that was almost, I didn't even think about the possibility of that. And now we're in the midst of that. And that's just a very small example of the things that could have been, that should never have happened, that then happened under this administration, that currently is happening. And I think that if you remove...
What's been the impact of that on businesses, particularly businesses that I understand depend a lot on a platform like Twitter, and this is your area, so that's why I'm asking you that question, because I hear all sorts of things and I'm not sure how serious the impact is. So you tell me.
It is very serious. Okay. I've been part of campaigns that we had to scale, because we're not some of these companies are very, very afraid of repercussions, so they're like, no, we don't want to take it to Twitter. So you had to scale where you were going to charge, because then they were restricted to some other platforms, but they were always going to be very much using Twitter to do those campaigns. There have been campaigns that did not even kick off at all. And take, for instance, Big Brother Naija. Twitter used to be a big part of their design. Now, Twitter is completely out of it. Whoever is in that business, whoever is interfacing with that end of their business, either hasn't gotten the job at all or has had their job scaled. And we also used to have people...
It's quite distressing, isn't it, that governments that should enable environments for employment, particularly at a time of economic difficulties, partly as a result of the pandemic, partly as a result of a growing youth population, which has, very little skills, that you then end up disrupting already existing businesses. I mean, I find that problematic. Do you find it problematic?
I don't even think problematic cuts it. It's worse than that. It's worse than that, because if there was one side of the economy, even when Nigeria was going through a recession, if there was one part of the economy alongside agriculture that was actually helping the economy, it was the tech sector. If you check the latest numbers that were released, where Nigeria had grown by 5% in the second quarter of 2021, you will see that the tech numbers were going down. And that's understandable, because apart from the direct effects that that people are not able to get jobs or do jobs, there's also the perception that this is not a country where I want to bring my money, because somebody could just wake up in the morning to do these things. I think the challenge with people in government, and not just this administration, over the years, is that they don't have this multi-order thinking go into their policies. They just think that this thing is causing this problem, then let's address it. They don't understand that in addressing it, have you addressed the possible effects of that decision? The second order effects of your decisions. Across the board, people just do policies, close the border, do this, do that. You must always address, especially even as a human being, you must address second order effects. But for a human being, it's not as complex as a government. As a government, you must always look at the possible effects of your decisions, the unintended consequences beyond the intended consequences. Only then can you say, okay, the benefits far outweigh the cost, then let's go ahead with it. But these days, it just looks like this is bad, let's cut it out. This is good, let's do it. This person, we don't like this person, let's block them from this end. And you cannot run a country of so-called 200 million people like that.
Okay, so as a strategist, for business, but there are many people who basically say if we run Nigeria as a business, maybe we'll do better. So let's assume Nigeria is a business and you're the chief strategist for Nigeria. What are the sort of things you'll be looking at, given where we are as a country now, major existential threats, whether it is terrorists masquerading as bandits? I don't like that name. I don't think they're bandits. I think they're terrorists. Whether it is a government that is seemingly regulating without understanding the industry it is regulating, whether it is the tanking economy, whether it is the deep distrust that we now have amongst ourselves. What should be a Nigerian strategy?
That's a loaded question, but the first thing I'll say is that it's easier said than done. So whatever I say is easier said than done compared to when you then wear the crown and then you have to carry the weight of the crown. But certain things they really like go without saying. Nigeria has a population. There are jobs flying around the world looking for where to perch, looking for countries to perch. Those jobs will not come to Nigeria, even though Nigeria's population is massive, is young, the labor is cheap, because that population is not skilled. So Nigeria cannot even attract those jobs. So right now, these days, loads of Nigerians are actually attracting jobs from abroad, but that's not skilled. In the number that we're attracting them, we should be doing tens of those numbers. So when you talk about all these challenges, the interesting thing is that there's something that connects them. There is the fact that people are poor. It connects all the challenges, whether it is banditry, whether it is terrorism, whether it is people being angry that it's not their turn or their turn.
It makes people vulnerable to these fault lines.
Of course, because if you're engaged, if you're busy,
if you have a stake
in society, you know, like it's very rare for somebody whose business is established across the country to be saying, I want my own country. Because of course it's not your interest to say you want your own country. You have a very big turf of 200 million to play with. No businessman whose business is across the country wants to reduce 200 million to 50 million or 70 million, depending on what part of the country that he lands in. So the challenge is in spreading opportunities, in creating those opportunities. And unfortunately, what Nigeria has done is not to think along those lines. The challenge is that we are not a competitive country, one, and then our subnationals are not competitive, two. They are queuing up to get money rather than competing to make money. You get it? They are going to Abuja to get how much Abuja has brought together to share for everyone. Rather than Lagos and Ogun competing for some crowd or for some tech money, rather than Kano and Jigawa competing for some opportunities that they can attract from that region, rather than Akwa Ibom and Cross River, and we don't have that, and that's what we need to have. That's what we must have. We must engender a competitive. And when I say because also our indoctrination has been such that we think of certain words as bad, like competition. You know, but these are the things that have helped countries thrive. These are the things that have engendered prosperity in the countries that we like to go to. And these are the things that we must do. Take our diaspora, for instance. It's actually a massive economic unit for Nigeria, but it's an afterthought. They're not able to vote. Nobody's thinking of that. The $25 billion or so that they send into the country is a matter of fact because they have their family here. If you design the right policy and structure for that, it could be 50 billion. It could be $100 billion by 2025.
Investments as well.
All of that. We're not thinking along those lines because unfortunately, oil has helped us not to think, and also it has affected our thinking so much so that industries that were supposed to nurture, to grow so that we can reap the benefits tomorrow, we treat them like the oil industry and we're looking to just get our rents. And by so doing, we destroy things that would make this country thrive. I think the biggest advantage Nigeria has is that the people are driven by design. The driven is that the population is strong, and if you just plug the right things, 1-2 things together, this country will move forward. And that's the primary reason I say have faith in it.
When you look around, are you hopeful? Yeah. That's the question I was going to.
Yeah, on account of the spirit of Nigerians, on account of the strength of its diaspora, on account of the fact that countries have been through China, Japan, they've been through South America, Southeast Asia, they've been through stuff like this, and somehow they're doing much better than they used to do. So for that, one has to be hopeful, because whatever Nigeria is going through today, everything Nigeria is going through today is not exceptional about Nigeria.
It's not new.
Yeah.
Now, you are also an author. You wrote a book.
Yeah.
Digital Wealth.
Yeah.
And because we're talking about creation of wealth and skills, I remember being really surprised, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't pencil you down as an author.
Okay.
So it comes from, I guess, that bias that we have against social media.
Yeah.
And where you kind of initially look at people who do social media as a bit of airheads.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God.
So when you told me you were writing a book, I was pleasantly, I'm confessing, I was pleasantly surprised. And not only did you say you were writing a book, you did actually publish your book and launched it. And it's called Digital Wealth. What did you try to do with that book?
Many things. First of all, to also let people see what was going on in the space, and also because I thought that many people from abroad would come after the space had grown and they would write about it. I didn't want them to have the first take on the space. It was also that I was leaving the country for a year or so, And I didn't just want to leave without dropping anything. It was also that my late friend, may so rest in peace, Emilia, sent me an email and said, look, we need to do something like this. And I just basically scaled that idea. So many things came together to do it. But I find it surprising because I've always wanted to be an author. I'm going to write a lot of books if God keeps me alive. So, yeah.
Okay. And how was it received?
Really, considering I wasn't even in the country to push it and everything, I was looking at the numbers yesterday, not for the purpose of this conversation. I was just looking at the numbers and I was like, oh my God, my book did numbers like this. Like if I put this on the internet, people are going to want to come and kidnap me.
Because you have plenty of money to pay ransom.
Yeah, But so yeah, I've been blessed with respect to that. I'm working on a couple of other ones. I intend to write a lot of books. I love books, and I think it's just normal that I want to also express myself through books.
You mentioned there your friend Emilia, who's now died, and I want to take just a few minutes to talk about her. And the reason is simple. So many of you said so many glowing things about her when she died. It was almost like there was this angel that you were all, friends with. I mean, some of the stuff I heard, both from people her age, younger, older as well. And I was surprised because I didn't know her.
Interesting.
Until she died.
She definitely knew you.
I'd heard about a young girl who was sort of part of the original team that put together
the Future Awards.
But I didn't know her.
Wow, that's
personally, and then when she died, and so many people around me were devastated and talking about her, I thought, wow, what an interesting young lady. What is it about Emilia that was so special?
So I find it interesting that you didn't, because she was just this person that was automatically like attracted to people like yourself. I'm certain she knew you. I'm 100% certain of that. But it was also our capacity to bring everybody together. One thing about Nigerians is always difficult to bring Nigerians together because people always think they know more than they do. They think they're richer than they have. They think they're more important. And so, all these unnecessary...
The egos keep coming.
Emilia has the capacity to deal with all of that, with you as an individual and with the collective. And I think she did that very, very well. It was also her ability to step away from the lights, even when she's running. So, and the average
and push other people.
So,
fantastic.
Being able to do all of that was very, very powerful. She was also a giver. She saw things before other people saw them. She was able to execute things, and I think the most important thing was just her personality. She was just this. For my next book, I sent her a message to say, Emilia, I just got this idea for this book. We're working on this, and it has to come out in December. It can't come out in December now on account of Emilia's passing. But by this time, she was already even suffering, right? And she had decided not to tell anyone.
That she was ill, yeah.
So she was that kind of person, and she just embodied all of those things that made it easy to be friends with her, to share with her, to trust her with the things you want to do. And may her soul rest in peace. She served in the 33 years that she was here.
It's amazing to hear so many
33 years.
Talking, people saying these amazing things about someone who was really young.
It was massive. It was massive. Her life was massive.
Now, one of the people who sort of was part of celebrating her and mourning her and celebrating her after she died is someone that was close to you, but who you had a very public falling out with. And I'm talking about the former Minister of Education, Oby Ezekwesili. Until that happened, you and Oby were seen as close friends by those who sort of knew you guys. There was a perceived closeness there. So, first of all, are you able to talk about this? How did you end up falling out with someone that was like a mother, a mentor, and has it been resolved?
So if this wasn't a conversation with you, someone I really, really respect and love, I'd really not want. I don't want to address this, and I've been turning down requests to have a conversation about this, and that was also the way I dealt with the issue when it started. I didn't want to address it. My hands literally were forced, and it's interesting because this is a difficult one because I really don't want to address it. But let me just say that before we had our issue, we actually did have a conversation about Emilia, right? She called me to ask me what happened to Emilia, and I told her as much as I knew, and she said, look, let me know what's going on when it comes to her burial. When the burial happened on YouTube, I sent her the the links on either WhatsApp or on Twitter, DM. When I attended the burial, I let her know I attended. But I should also say, though, before we had this conversation because of Emilia, we were not talking for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. I also didn't have her my book launch, even though I sent her a copy of the hardcover of the book, which I never got a response about. But where it changed for me was, I think, around 2017 or thereabouts. I can't remember. I used to say, let Magu, let him be substantive EFCC chairman so he can do his job properly. That was my public stand. And then we started to hear about this thing that the DSS had done that showed that he was corrupt, he had this and he had that. And from my position, I had access to the documents that the Senate was using to say they were not going to pass him. And then I saw the documents, and I then tweeted something along the lines of, I think Magu has a case to answer. I didn't say he was guilty of anything. I just said, I think Magu has a case to answer. And she comes to my DM and says, what did you see? And I told her, and then she starts saying something along the lines of, you better be careful, don't let these politicians use you. And I thought,
and because she's not here, my intention wasn't really to get into the details. Yeah,
because something led to something
fight,
for us to happen, for that to happen. That was not an accident. It wouldn't have happened like that if we were still close. And I think that was where things. Because I'm trying to, because it wasn't that both of us were like this yesterday, and then all of a sudden it was like that. And then even fast forward, there was a gradual breakdown in the relationship, no question about it, because we stopped talking, we stopped exchanging emails. There was, when I got the call for that, she later, so I got a call, I didn't see the call, then I called back and she said it was Emilia. When I saw the call, I was even surprised that she had a call on my phone. So when there was no fight or anything, but the relationship wasn't what it was. But even at that point, when this thing happened, I sent her a WhatsApp message, and I still have it on my phone. I said, look, your children are disparaging me on Twitter on account of what has happened. I said, irrespective of what happened, that I don't think that we should have a situation where your children are doing that to me. I have it in text. So this is not even...
You did not want a public falling.
Oh, no, I did not. And I have the phone here if you want me to show you. Yes.
But the question is a question of integrity, JJ. Yeah. Because the suggestion is that you went behind her back and did something that is almost could be seen as illegal, maybe. No. That's totally wrong. So that's totally wrong. So the charge that they submitted, our lawyer submitted at the IG's office, said that I used her documents and stuff to make her to put her on my board. But in 2012, without her permission. But in 2012, nobody needed any ID to put you on the board. Right. So that's a false claim. They said that I forged a signature. My lawyer signed for me. My lawyer didn't even forge my own signature. My lawyer wrote the names for all the other people that were on the board. So look, the truth of the matter is, but if you have her permission,
I had her permission, and I told her at the meeting at her house where I got this permission. She said that she had not been to Nigeria. She had not left the World Bank at the time. Then I sent her a YouTube link to the video of the interview along the lines where the questions, and I also said that I have people from that period that happened. But beyond the letter of what happened or did not happen, which for me is more important. Beyond the letter of what happened or did not happen, I told a friend of mine that was fighting a mutual friend that stop posting the things you're posting on Twitter about this person, because you shouldn't fight your friends the way you fight other people. And I completely believe in that, and I continue to believe in that, right? Everything
you have regrets that this became a very public spat.
That's not my regret to have, because I tried to make sure it didn't become that, right? My own part.
Has it been resolved now? Are you guys, and would you? Okay, so has it been resolved?
I don't know. I don't know.
So you haven't spoken to her since then?
No, I've had no reason to.
And if anybody listening to us that is close to her and maybe knows you, wants to sort of mediate between you guys, would you be willing to have that conversation?
The question is, what's the integrity of that mediation? What's the integrity? A young man is being torn apart on the internet. All of these things were happening. But there was no intervention.
Even families fall out.
I agree, but the people that come to mediate for those families, before they come as mediators, they would have tried to either before the thing blows apart, they would have been the ones trying to make sure that it wasn't happening. They would have been the ones holding the other side. And if these things actually come and creates a spark and something blows over, they've earned the integrity and the legitimacy to come and say, let's do this. But unfortunately, nobody has actually seriously, respect to someone like Uncle Kadaria Ahmed, who actually did some of that before and did it after. But generally speaking, the people that you would have expected to do that, they never did anything like that, at least not from my side. And if they were doing it from one side, obviously, then it meant that they were not even doing it for me, they were doing it for her. And I respect that everybody would want to protect their integrity and defend themselves. I just think that there are certain things that are unnecessary, especially when it comes to the kind of relationship that we had. It wasn't like this, it was like this. Right?
Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot. I cannot even begin to tell you. First off, I'm not going to say everything publicly, but I cannot even begin to tell you the depths of what I learned as a person, because as a public figure, this was the worst moment of my life. Before I came to defend myself, I was being torn apart, and I mean literally, I was being torn apart. I saw people bury me alive. They were burying me, and this was being, how am I supposed to put it? The petrol and the fire. Not only was it started by a particular group of people that I thought were with me, it was also being developed and being amplified by them. And for me, that's a big problem, because I'm the kind of person that when I love you, I love you. There's no negotiating that bit for me. It's either I love you or you don't exist in my frame. We can say good morning, hello. That's fine. I don't have any problems with you, or I love you. I'm not a half measure person. So to find those people do that to me was, but the beauty of the lesson for me was that I think that if God keeps me alive, I have at least another half of, the entire life I've lived, I have a fullness of that to live again. So it's a good time to learn some of those lessons.
How old are you, JJ?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. Okay. People are going to be judging on account of people judge you on account of how you say the things you say, and they say, oh, because he's a young person or because he has not learned that. So that's not fair for me to say in this context. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, you went through that, whole, like I said, public spot. If you first thought your reputation had received a bit of a bashing, and we were not sure, what exactly would happen, because there were issues of legality, legitimacy, that sort of thing, and then we hear a major announcement that you've now become a member of the Halifax International Security Forum, right? That is big.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. At all.
Tell me, what exactly does that mean, that you're now a member of that forum? And then talk me through how you ended up there.
Okay, so back in 2014, I got an invitation to attend this meeting. And when I got to Canada in 2014, it was like, sorry for, So I had to ask this. And I was also on the first forum conversation they were having on Africa. To that point, they had never had a conversation on Africa. So I was on the panel with representatives of the International Crisis Group and some other organizations that were working on the continent. But I was on the panel as myself, as my voice. So when we went out to party after the conference, we were
like
clubbing.
We normally do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to tell our audience a bit so they understand this laughing. Jeffrey and JJ and I found ourselves in Berlin
2016.
a few years ago, and yes, a party happened.
Yeah, so I was at one of these post-conference parties. So I asked this person, like, where did you guys find me? Who recommended me to you guys? Because it was big. Before then, I was already speaking. I was already on the international speaking circuit. I'd been there, done that, even by that time in 2014. But I was too curious because I didn't see anyone that I could say was the one that influenced my move here. And then this was the biggest shock. And then they said, this guy said that he had gone to YouTube to look for someone to put in that position to have that conversation, and he saw this video. It was actually a video of me speaking to kids. It's TEDx Aso Rock from 2013, where I was talking to kids about Africa. So it was a very difficult speech to have because I kept saying, "Do you remember? Do you understand?" I kept repeating myself. So he said 2 minutes into the video, he sent it to his bosses. They said to get him. So after that, they started to bring me every year, right? Every year, but it was just as a member. It's not as a member. It was just as a delegate.
So
right?
Tell me a little bit about this group. Who exactly are they? What do they do? And how influential are they?
So the Halifax International Security Forum is interested in international security, in global security, but from the POV, from the point of view of democracies. So they're unlikely to invite a dictator to the meeting, for instance, but they will invite people from democracies like the UK, Canada, the US, say Western Europe, North America, and also the other democracies. But from some other countries, they would invite non-state actors before they invite.
Is it purely a talking shop? So they come and they sort of talk about the strategy, or do they get involved in implementation, or does their work get taken and then used by
They get
other
involved
people?
because, for instance, the US Congress, they work directly with the US Congress in terms of how America reacts to some of the challenges that they, of course, also
So
supported.
they influence policy.
Yeah, and it's fully supported by the Canadian government. Up until recently, half of the funding is almost by the Canadian government. So it's not just a talking shop. It's actually very, very influential.
So you're now on the board.
Yeah.
The only African, or alongside other Africans?
No, I'm the only. I think I'm also the first African on that platform, and right now the only African.
The youngest,
So
maybe even.
Yeah, for sure.
And are you excited about this opportunity? What does it mean for you?
I mean, so it came at the right time for me because I'd done things internationally, but it was my first time being formally on a platform like that, not just being invited to come and speak. Being formally on a platform like that, which makes me now a stakeholder. So it's a big deal for me, and I do not take it for granted. I also do not take for granted the fact that I have an opportunity to show them a side that they might be blind to on account of their experiences and the things they have done, because it's just different when you're not a Nigerian, when you're not an African.
So you're giving them a perspective that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Right? But there's a part that I also bring that is not just African, is universal, is how to understand this generation and this media that is changing the world. So when I would attend the meetings, then my recommendations used to be around the media. but I didn't used to write my name on the recommendations. I guess maybe they would have, based on the people that they invited, I've known that this is this guy actually saying this thing. So all of that really came together. Work has started. I have 200 pages of notes to prepare me for my next meeting, which is in about 6 days. So it's a lot of work. I don't take it for granted, but I'm loving it.
Okay, and how long do you normally serve on the board? I'm
at least 3 years.
As a term. Okay,
at least 3 years.
I'm
not thinking of what happens after 3 years. I'm really just thinking of making sure that these moments in my life, this opportunity, that I use it very well, and it really counts, not just for me, for the objectives that they have, and also for some other unintended positives that might come out of it.
Okay. Well, it sounds really exciting. Keep us posted. Maybe the next set of meetings you have, we should cover and hear what you guys are talking about, because issues of insecurity are increasingly becoming very significant, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent, because of the things we're going through. I want to sort of wrap up with going back again to your personal life. Yeah. So your Insta, your Twitter, your social media pages are always full of you in fila, going for one wedding.
Are you for real? Am I that person?
Yes, no. It's always wedding. You know, your friends are constantly getting married, and you're attending one wedding or the other.
I know where this is going to land.
When are you getting married?
You know, the thing is, you know, life is too short these days. Okay. One has to not be too forward about how you live in it.
So do you believe in marriage, JJ? Or are you one of those who thinks that it is an outdated institution?
I think marriage has its utility.
Wow, how romantic.
I think it has.
You look at marriage as a very utilitarian.
It does have its utility in terms of how you shape society and how society works. I think if you look at every country that doesn't work, you just need to look at the marriage system, and you will actually say, of course, there's a romantic side of marriage that does not need beating. People are already taken by that by design. But I think there's there's that side of marriage.
So the advice to people wanting to get married is, yes, have your romance, but also make sure that you look at
it's essential.
Other things.
It's very essential.
What other things should people be looking at?
It's so, like, first of all, ask yourself, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you want to do it?
Because you love the person. Is that enough?
That's cool. That's cool, but can you afford it? Can you afford it? Can you give up certain dreams? Not all your dreams, but certain dreams so that person can advance for that period. So, for instance, you want to go and do your masters. They want to go and do their masters, but you have a family. Is it convenient for both of you to do it with the children, or would you rather stay?
So, are you saying that people have to have all these conversations before they settle down?
They must look. If you do not have those conversations, you will pay in the future. There's no question about it. You will pay because it's two people that were not born. Even with people that were born together, they have things and they separate. So imagine someone you most likely you're meeting when you became. For most people, they met when they became adults. You've been formed. You have dreams. You have ideas. Then you want to be together. There will be things to negotiate. And if you don't start by, first of all, understanding how the other person thinks, like, are they the kind of people that understand that the world does not revolve around them, that the moon actually doesn't follow them at night when they think it's following them, that there are other people's interests that matter, that there are times when they have to take a back seat and let you shine and thrive, not just for you, but actually also for them.
So these are all the calculations I'm going to assume that are going into your decision.
I'm talking generally, not just about me. Okay, so but really, it's not just that.
To go back to my original question, are we likely to hear any news anytime soon?
I think so. Look, I think so. I think I'm in that place where I think that the questions that I was talking about that I've answered most. You're never going to answer all of them. I think I've answered most of them, and I found intersections.
Are we getting a good big reveal here? Or you are not going to tell us who she is?
I found intersections.
Who is she?
I found intersections that I can
who
explore.
Oh, JJ.
I found intersections that I can explore in the future.
But you promise as soon as you sort of are ready to make the announcement,
when something the world needs to know happens, the world will know. But until then,
I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about Kadaria Ahmed and radio now.
But Kadaria, we're in front of the world. We're in front of the world. Like, this thing can go anywhere, right? So, and there's just parts of my life that, on account of the things I have learned on the internet and how, even though people show you love, they're just people waiting for you to fall and fail. So I've learned to keep those parts of my life as private as possible.
And the final thing, does followership matter on social media? And if so, how do we all get your 1 million followers? JJ, how?
Followership has its uses, but it can be overrated. It can be overrated. So I'll give an example. I don't have as many followers on Instagram. I have maybe 80,000 or thereabout. And one of my friends is becoming president of an organization. And I posted him on because I had met with him. We had a strategy session. I was just advising like quick wins and big wins. And then the sort of people that were responding and wanting to support, both privately and publicly, was too massive for what I thought my page was. So for me, it's the quality of followers. It's not just the numbers. Like, who are the people following you? If you want to raise £50,000 to help a mother today, do you have those kind of people? Or do you have people that are just waiting for you to help them subscribe for the next data and other sort of things? And I have to answer a question that got lost. Yes, it's essential to think about the things you put on the internet. It's really, really essential. If you do not know it now, the future will tell you that you should have known it. So, but it's better to just know it now. It's really essential. There are people just watching, locking, hiding in the shadows, and you just releasing those things.
You make the world sound really scary, JJ.
Really and truly, when you look at the dark side of the internet, it is scary. And to avoid those scares becoming real, it's better to just control as many things as possible from your own end. Because by design, this thing wants you to put everything out.
But overall, would you say the internet and social media are really positive forces overall for good?
Without a question, 100%. I'll answer that question a yes 100 times every time I get asked. For sure.
JJ, thank you so much for coming to radio now.
This has been so much fun. I mean, I wish I didn't get asked 1 or 2 questions. But
well, thank you so much for joining us. And that was 11:45, and I was talking to JJ Omojuwa, blogger, writer, influencer. Join us again next month for another episode of 11:45. I'm Kadaria Ahmed. Have a wonderful day.